To start, welcome to the Planning Committee meeting for the Contra Costa Transportation Authority for Wednesday, March 1st. We'll move on to public comment. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the committee regarding items that are not on the agenda. I have one speaker card. Mr. Pete Bennett.
Hello, my name is Pete Bennett. I'm sure you can hear me pretty well. I'm going to do this a little differently. Good evening, Luella. Karen. And so this is a strange story that I can't seem to unravel a puzzle from almost 40 years. So I come here and I use public speaking and I take the recordings and I'm going to include it in a movie because nobody's listening. Problem number one. In 2004, 18 Krugerrands were stolen out of my house while I was arrested for being 5150. During that time, I was appearing on CNN, talking about jobs and outsourcing with President Bush, Senator Feinstein. Many people knew who I was around the world. But yet somebody broke into my house while I was in custody and stole my coins. That's problem number one. That's $42,000 at the peak. Those Krugerrands were worth $42,000 in gold. Problem number two. While I was traveling down Stone Valley Road, somebody rigged my trailer to come apart just before I pulled off. I know who did it. And on there were the documents with Bennett versus Southern Pacific, a lawsuit where I lost millions of dollars, millions. So here it is, public record. And then my witness was murdered in that case, but I didn't find out for 13 years. He was murdered in Concord, which is what I shared with Mark Kuhn, what he was working on. You guys find this really strange, but it's the only way I can get this point across. And then on there, the documents were Bennett versus Southern Pacific, and if I had those documents, I could prove who murdered my witness. But I can't get him. Because he's a Mormon from Alamo that gave millions of dollars to Mitt Romney, and you better thank God that I called the Secret Service, and I got the right analyst, and they dug into it, and that's why Mitt Romney is not Secretary of State. And I worked for Undersecretary of State Arms Control, Alan Tauscher. So trust me, my story's deep. I use this forum. I get all of you in the same room. And then my stolen trust documents cost me $500,000, and the attorney that forged it sent me the forgery. Big mistake. So that's gone on for 10 years, 15 years. Problem number three, who from Danville rigged my truck for arson in 2004, nearly burning me alive, where I exploded into a fireball visible from the town of Danville. Really, really strange stuff. You never heard about any of this, did you? And then who from Danville, visible from the city hall, could see my truck exploding. And there's not a single person in this county that's ever had a fireball coming out of the back of their truck 100 feet long. But that's a big story. And then lastly, who stole all my guitars? And why won't the police in Concord and Walnut Creek provide me my police reports? I really want to play music at Wells Fargo Bank in Walnut Creek on most warm nights, but so far all I've gotten is a few cups of coffee, a broken nose, broken fingers, and many rides to the ER for assault and battery in multiple cities and multiple jurisdictions. I have almost 150 police reports and millions lost.
You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes is
3 minutes, or which is more valuable, your minute or my life?
Well, sir, your life is, but obviously...
Then to make it my life.
Wrap it up.
Let's not get argumentative.
I'm not getting argumentative.
I'm going to close it out.
Thank you.
Give me my time.
Luella
knows I'm really cooperative. I've taken 200 plus concussions while you guys sit and watch me.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of my head being broken, my nose broken, my fingers broken, my ribs fractured. This is the most effective way to get rid of people that are bothering me and get my answers. You've never gone through anything like this. I have. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Move on to item number C, approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
First by Heskey and second by what's her name exactly? Mitchell? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Item number D, election of a chair and a vice chair. Do I have nominations?
Well, Luella, you're the vice chair. Okay. And I'm hearing conversation here. Are you supportive of having our first? Go ahead. You know where I'm going with it.
I do. I kind of just dropped my jaw when I heard I was vice chair because I'm going to be learning the ropes here for a while, and I think I would be better as a supporter rather than as a vice chair. So I would appreciate it. Are you going to nominate a replacement?
I'll nominate Karen Mitchell.
And I'll second it. Thank you.
Okay. I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Vice Chair. No, that was
Vice
Oh, that was Vice Chair. Okay, and for Chair, that was
I move Luella Hesky for vice chair.
Oh,
okay.
Then you've
got a
year.
Right. So you're gonna
Okay. Everybody else on this board has been chair and vice chair, so it works out just fine.
okay. As long as I get lots of help when I'm working on it. Thank you.
Okay.
Was that a yes?
That's please somebody nominate me so I can second it, okay?
I nominated.
And I'll second me.
Okay. All right. So we have a first and a second for Vice Chair. Well, I'll ask you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. I'm not going to. You're comfy there.
No speech.
Here, I'll give you the.
Nah. This is an agreeable group.
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
There.
We're going to give that to Hudson Abelson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, regular agenda items. Number 3, consideration of entering into a joint corridor study effort for San Pablo Avenue. Mr. Engelman.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and good evening, Planning Committee members. Martin Engelman, Deputy Executive Director for Planning. And here's an item that we talked about for a long time at the last meeting in February. And after a long discussion about the proposed joint corridor study effort on San Pablo Avenue, you asked that this item be forwarded over to WCTAC for discussion before the authority took any action. So at the WCTAC meeting last February 24th, last Friday, WCTAC agreed in concept to participate in this study and agreed in concept to make a funding contribution. This study would be follow-up to West County's high-capacity transit study, which is currently underway, and they're zeroing in on some very exciting transit options for West County, including bus rapid transit. How that fits on San Pablo Avenue and how that works with the specific plans that are in place is going to require a lot more work. So this corridor study would be a joint study between Alameda County, Contra Costa County. Alameda CTC would take the lead. They would pay the lion's share of the cost. We are starting to get some cost estimates. They're a little higher than I thought they'd be. $1.2 million for the total study. The authority would kick in $200,000, and WCTAC would pay $50,000. So it's actually a pretty good leverage deal for us as far as getting the study completed, since a lot of the territory is in Contra Costa, certainly a lot more than 20%. So tonight, we're seeking your in-concept approval to start negotiating with Alameda CTC on this study. We would bring you back probably next month a proposed funding agreement. The actual cost of the study would not be incurred until much later. It's going to take a while to get a consultant on board and so forth. So this $200,000 in authority costs would go into the 17-18 budget, which you have yet to see and approve. And then WCTAC would separately budget for their $50,000 share. So if you concur, we simply ask in-concept approval to start working with Alameda CTC on developing this study, organizing this study.
Janet?
Yes, as was said, it was discussed at the WCTAC meeting on Friday, and we were in agreement that this was a wise way to proceed. And so I'm happy to make a motion if we're ready for that.
Nobody in the audience wanted any public comment?
I move that we enter into a joint study effort for San Pablo Avenue as outlined in Agenda Item 3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Good. Moved by Abelson, seconded by Haskew. Mr. Hudson.
What's his name? I want to make sure I'm reading this right. This is not the same thing we did, but the same words, different numbers from last month.
That's correct. Last month we actually didn't have numbers yet.
Okay.
So we finally got some numbers.
Okay, because when I'm reading this, I want to make sure that everybody's getting, we're recommending to the full board that the authority contribution would not exceed 200,000
That's correct.
out of 1.2 million or whatever is creeping up. And WICTAC is considering, I mean, you,
So for 250,000.
okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe it,
Well,
before I get a little bit further into this, what does considering mean? I mean, you're talking about it, you're still, well, you know,
sorry,
how
but-
far are they along on this thing, Janet? You spent a lot of time on it.
I'm looking at John Nemeth.
Yeah, I mean,
Not remembering the
I don't
word
want you to get
considering,
into
actually.
something with Alameda and find out, well, maybe 25 would be better.
Well, directors, our board did take an action to
Okay.
allocate the $50,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's different. You more than considered it. You voted on something. Go ahead.
Yeah, this was written before their
Okay.
meeting. So.
I actually think it's a really good deal for West County because what's really going on behind this is Measure BB in Alameda County. So they have a lot of money, but they can't just take it to the county line. They have to take it like to somewhere. And we're the ones with the BART station. So that's why it's a good deal. That's why they're interested in us.
We always want people to work well together. So
Yes, so we have the BART station, and
I thought I'm going to be sitting over there in the future. and
so
away
we're
from
the
you.
link to BART from the buses that run on, and the minibuses really, that run on San Pablo Avenue. So this would be a really great step towards modernization of that, you know, improving bus stops, which are really, we did a project, I think it was in the early 2000s, where we put in fresh new bus stops at all of our rapid stops and so forth, but now they're kind of old.
Well, yeah, 17 years.
Yeah, and so this will be a chance to bring it up to today's standards. And anyway, I think this is a great deal for us, actually.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, BB.
We do have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, the 2017 Countywide Transportation Plan Work Plan Status Update. Mr. Engelman on this too, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. Back in December, we presented a work plan to you for starting up the Countywide Transportation Plan. I guess we're going to call it the 2017 plan. You may recall we've been working on this for several years. It started as a 2014 plan, then it became the 2016 plan, and now it's the 2017 plan. We've done a lot of public outreach. We've gotten a lot of good input on the plan. We did get direction from the authority at the end of 2016 to hold off on, at the end of 2015 to hold off on publishing this as we tried to incorporate more comments as we got more familiar with Senate Bill 743. And also, at the time, the authority was embarking on a transportation expenditure plan. So now we've started to do the preliminary work on the countywide plan, and the work plan we gave you back in December said we could get all of this done in the calendar year of 2017, that it would take 12 months, and that was based upon a couple of assumptions. The first was that we would have a published set of forecasts from MTC by this time, and historically the Association of Bay Area Governments has published their forecasts that go into the Regional Transportation Plan in February of the year that the plan's adopted. So now we're in February 2017. ABAG would have published their forecast for jobs, housing, population, and then in July, MTC would adopt their 2017 plan. Well, we talked to ABAG staff, and we learned that they are not planning to publish anything at this point, that MTC is going to go along with the draft numbers that were released a couple of months ago, and they're doing what's called a final preferred alternative, taking that through the draft environmental stage and through the final stage. And so we received those numbers. We've looked at them. We're going back and forth with MTC. We have some issues with the baseline, and we really don't think they're reliable numbers yet, and we don't want to spend a lot of money modeling all of this stuff using these brand new numbers, which can change and which may well change in July 2017 and even after that when ABAG publishes their projections. So that's one of the things that I want to make you aware of. That's kind of a change condition. And the other thing that happened is we sent our consultant DKS Associates out to the Regional Transportation Planning Committee TACs, the Technical Advisory Committees, and we started the discussion about Senate Bill 743. We alerted them all to the fact that they have in their action plans level of service and what we call delay index, which is a congestion measure. And SB 743, initially the legislation said that this would only be prohibited in transit-oriented development areas, but now they've expanded it to all the way across California. You shouldn't use level of service and shouldn't use congestion-based or delay-based measures in your environmental documents. And our whole growth management program is all linked together, that a jurisdiction has a new project that we haven't evaluated in the action plans. They do an analysis. They come to the regional committee and say, hey, I've got a new project here. Here's how it affects our transportation objectives, some of which are level of service. And after much work, we got it all aligned and knitted together so that it all fits into the environmental evaluation phase. Well, that's kind of come apart. And so we talked to 5 RTPCs. We talked to West, Central, East, Southwest, and Tri-Valley. And we got different answers from different people within the RTPCs. Some of the public works directors very much want to keep level of service because they use it to, in effect, leverage mitigations for new projects. Developers need to pay to mitigate the impacts they create under Measure J, and so they want to keep level of service. Others are interested in developing this new metric, which the Office of Planning and Research has said should be vehicle miles traveled, VMT. You know that acronym, right? So VMT would be the new metric. So when we went out to the TACs, they said, well, give us some examples of how this would work. Okay, to give examples, we need a methodology, we need guidelines. Well, Office of Planning and Research, they released draft guidelines, and those draft guidelines, we can use them to give examples, but those draft guidelines are still under review at the state level, and when they release the final, they may be different. And so that's another event that's causing us to reconsider our work plan here. So the work plan we gave you back in December said, new data, 2017 RTP, incorporate SB 743. We're looking at that now, and I have to tell you, I don't think we can complete this project in calendar year 2017 if we keep going down this path. I think it's going to take longer than that, and it may go well into 2018, by which time other things may have changed. So staff is getting a little bit concerned about the schedule, and we've given you 2 options to consider on page 3, and one would be to continue along with the adopted CTP and EIR work plan, understanding that there would be delay as we await publication of the new projection series and as we wait for OPR to adopt the new guidelines for Senate Bill 743. Now, we do have a second option, which is perfectly feasible and doable under current environmental law, and that is based upon the date when we issued our notice of preparation for the EIR, and we did release a notice of preparation for a full EIR. That was on Valentine's Day, February 14th. From that day, that becomes the date when you use the most current available published information for your countywide plan, for your EIR. Well, the information we have in hand is the projections 2013, the 2013 RTP, and the action plans that were already approved by the Regional Transportation Planning Committee. All of those plans have good current data because the new data hasn't been released yet. And so if we move forward with that information, we believe that we could actually fast track this plan, certainly get it done in calendar year 2017, and maybe even sooner than that, using everything that we already have in hand, and that would include all the modeling information as well. So we give you these choices, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Janet, did you have a question?
And I think this is for, but I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. And I can remember back when we were working, I think, on the development of Measure J, we started talking here about LOS around BART stations was just a bad metric around BART stations. And lo and behold, the state picked it up, and not necessarily just because we said so, but they did pick it up, and they started working on implementing it. But somewhere along the way, it got changed into this other thing, which is everything. And it's just like a different animal. Around a BART station, you can't get a lot of people. We're trying to get a lot of people to the trains, and we need some vehicles to do that in. And the more vehicles you have, the worse your LOS is. So so it doesn't make sense to use LOS as a standard. Other places, it's a different situation, and so I really support option 2, which is to go ahead and not wait for this. We already have it around around transit centers now, and so we will have the thing that we actually wanted, and whether or not this other thing ever happens is just another animal. And so I would recommend option 2, which is to modify the work plan and maintain the CDP and EIR 2017 completion schedule.
And I'm going to go to Kevin next. I'm not going to opine yet. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Modify the current work plan and maintain, for number 1, and maintain the work plan for number 2? I'm not sure. I appreciate the explanation you gave, Martin. It's either stay the course, which is number 2, or be more flexible, which is number 1. But anyway, Kevin.
Option 1 is continue along with the work plan you adopted in December, understanding that there would be delay, because the work plan you adopted in December uses new information and incorporates SB 743. And just to address Commissioner Abelson's comment, we are ahead of the curve. We haven't been blindly going along and putting level of service in transit stations, which is where we don't want it. And actually, the West County Action Plan has an exemption for the BART stations. Within a half a mile of the BART stations, level of service doesn't apply. So I think our action plans, as they were adopted by the RTPCs a couple of years ago, are in good shape with regard to kind of incorporating the spirit of SB 743. But under option 1, we would go ahead and fully update those with the new guidelines and wait for the new guidelines. So option 2 is kind of the streamline. Let's move ahead with what we have in hand.
No, I know, but why would you modify the work plan then? That's what I'm not understanding.
Where do you see modify the work
Number
plan?
2, modify the work plan.
I just read it.
Yeah, so modify the work plan that you adopted in December. In December, you said, let's go forward with all new data. So we would modify that to say, let's use existing conditions. I'm sorry for the confusion.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Like was stated in the presentation, we've been working on this for 4 years. We don't know what 2008 is going to bring. It could be a number of things coming our way. Let's just get her done and move forward with this.
Okay.
Dave?
Yeah, I think it's the best way to proceed, the two. I don't know if we could change it anyway in Danville and San Ramon with that lawsuit. We've got to do level of service unless this changes it somehow. So I didn't think so either. So I'm looking at the Newell and Candace if she's here, and the 3 votes right there that we've got to use what we've got. We can't change a court order.
Did you want to say anything? You don't have to.
So I actually intuitively like option 2, which is, go with what you've got and get it done. My only concern is, in my naivete, I don't know if we just proceed with the proceedings, do we then disadvantage ourselves somehow when all this new rush of information comes through?
And that was going to be I'm going to follow up on that. Are we more vulnerable to attacks by people who don't want us to do this and say, hey, you used 2013 information, but now there's new information. So probably that's the conundrum you're all working with and why you want a direction.
I think you've hit the trade-off right there. That's the question. But if you keep waiting for the new stuff to come, then you keep changing it, it never gets done. And actually, CEQA law says you can use whatever is the most current available data as of the issuance of the NOP, which is, as I said, Valentine's Day 2017. So according to our legal counsel, this is how you do it. So we should be on solid ground.
Well, I'm seeing consensus. Do we need a motion for this, or do you just want to? Yes, you do. Who would like to move this?
I'll move.
Janet's
option
moving. Who's seconding?
2.
And Kevin's seconding. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. No opposed. Will this go to the authority as a discussion item as opposed to a consent item, just so you can explain to them what's going on?
If you'd like to give us direction on that, we'd
What do
happy
you think,
to.
group? I mean, we needed to hear this. I'm thinking that our colleagues are going to need to hear this. It would be great to put it on consent, but I think if we can have a brief presentation.
Yeah, we could certainly put it on discussion.
If you're going to put 2 options there, you better put it on regular.
That's just our recommendation. I think
That makes sense.
2 is our recommendation. I think the full authority needs to have a discussion.
Sure.
Great, thank you. Item 5 is public outreach for the countywide bicycle and pedestrian plan, and that would be Mr. Beck. Good
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I want to give a brief update on where we are in the update of the countywide bike ped plan and the public outreach portion of it. There was a pretty detailed public outreach program that you adopted when you approved contract 450 with Fair and Peers to help us on the update. It included a number of things. One of them is a micro website. We have a
What's a micro website?
well, it's
Little?
smaller than ours.
It's a site within a site.
Yes.
It's a link.
No, it's a site within a site. You're not linking to something outside. So they're basically accessing CCTA's website
Oh,
and another
okay.
web sort of feature is buried within the web that we're currently working on.
Thank you. That's very interesting. Did anybody else know that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Mr. Romick.
It's a web inside a web.
Yeah, we used a similar approach for the public outreach for the countywide plan and for Measure X, the development of it. And the website's domain name is keepcontracostamoving.net.
I got a newsletter today from them.
Yes. So we're just about to make this go live. There's a few technical tweaks that we have to make that doesn't quite work on some mobile phones. But let me show you a bit. This is the development site. It's, like I said, almost done. It's got a home page. It's got an interactive map, survey. There will be documents when we get documents to share and contact information. On the front page, I'm sorry, I forget I'm not on a Mac.
Can there be a headline that this is the bike and ped, or do we don't want it that way? Where it says project overview, I mean, going back to the micro web concept, are they maintaining it, or are we maintaining it?
I'm sorry, the headline, there used to be a headline over the image.
Okay,
Thanks
so
for catching that.
it's just not showing up.
It
but-
used to be on there, and I don't know where it went to. So this is very similar to what you see inside. It's the fact sheet. It's got the planning process in a very schematic format. Get involved. There are two things available now, but later on we'll have stakeholder focus groups, local agency meetings. We're going to have a number of pop-up public input stations where we go to things like farmers markets or Energizer stations for bike to work days, places where people are already there, so they don't have to go anywhere. They're there where we are, so we can share information, get information from them. So let me go back up to the top and show you the interactive map that we have. This is a technique that a lot of people, a lot of projects have started to use. Stockton used it, for example. We're using Chrome. I've tried it on different browsers. Chrome really is the best one to use. And basically, you've got these pins and lines that you can add to the map. So you identify a location where you think it's a good place. I enjoy walking here. I've got a problem with this location. You need to improve crosswalks there. There are missing connections. And you can add some text along with the pin so that we know what the issue, and you can provide more detail on it. We also have a survey. It's not long. We're trying not to make it too long. We do ask some demographic questions at the beginning. The only question you really have to answer is what your zip code is, because we want to know if there are differences among people who respond from different parts of Contra Costa. There are first a set of questions on pedestrian.
Yeah, you better put it in. It won't let you go
Sorry. It's a mandatory question. I'll put in mine. And you first get a set of questions on walking. How is it easy or difficult is it to walk? How often have you walked? Where have you walked? Why have you walked? There's then a similar set of questions on bicycling. Basically, the same set of questions. And then finally, how do you want to be contacted about it? How do you want to keep up to date with the project? You can sign up for the mailing list. And then you can have some additional feedback that you provide. You know, what do you think the plan should try to achieve? And what other feedback do you want to give? So as soon as we get those couple of technical glitches ironed out, we'll turn it on. I'm hoping to get it done tomorrow or Friday. And we'll be sending out information to all the jurisdiction staff and our mailing list that we have otherwise for other outreach through our Facebook page, our e-newsletter, to let people know that this is going on. And I will have them add that title to the front page so they know what this is about. There are a couple of other things that we'll be doing. I've mentioned the pop-up workstations, the online survey I've described. We're also going to do sort of like the telephone town hall. It won't be quite the same. We'll have it won't be telephones. We'll have people be able to send in questions via email or through the website, and we'll have people be able to present the plan. Be more like a webinar, and we'll record it and post it on the website so that people can, at their leisure, when they have time, go in and watch it, learn more about the plan, learn about the questions that people are interested in, concerns that people have raised about bicycling and walking in Contra Costa. I'll go back to the front page and remind you of the schedule. There it goes. We're going to have a draft and final strategic white paper that identifies some of the issues that we're hoping to overcome and address through the plan. I have a draft plan in about October, review it with the public through the late fall and through the winter, then have a final plan and environmental clearance no later than July of next year. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Seeing none, we'll accept the report.
Thank you.
You very much. Okay, moving on to item 6, which is the authorization to initiate contract negotiations with the selected consultant for RFP 16-6, ongoing planning-related consultant services. And this, again, is Mr. Engelman.
Yes, Madam Chair. Back in December, the authority released a request for proposal for ongoing planning-related consultant services. We do this about every 3 or 4 years and have a competitive process for choosing our on-call consultant. And this consultant is similar in many ways to the program management consultant we have. We have now on board Stantec doing our projects and program management. On the planning side, we've had a firm called Diet & Bhatia Urban and Regional Planners, and actually they've been on board since 1989. They were contract number 3, originally as Blaney Diet, and then they went through a number of other ownerships. They're still there as Diet & Bhatia. Michael Diet, who's the principal, is actually retired, and they've been doing a good job. They worked on our 95 plan, our 2000 plan, our 2004 plan, our 2009 plan, and actually on our 2016, 14, 16, 17 plan as well. But it's probably time for a change, and a new firm called PlaceWorks came in with a great team of sub-consultants and a great project manager. I'd like to introduce David Early, who's in the audience. He's the project manager for PlaceWorks, and he's a very experienced facilitator. They do great public outreach work, and they're also very well versed in planning. So a committee comprised of local staff and a couple of the members of authority staff here all agreed. There was consensus that PlaceWorks was the most qualified firm. So based upon that selection process, we're recommending that we proceed with PlaceWorks for this new contract and ask your authorization tonight to start negotiating a contract. I will just add that there is some money left in the till for Diet & Bhatia, and that's actually a good thing because it helps with a smooth transition. So as we're bringing PlaceWorks on board and as we're fast-tracking this 2017 CTP as you've recommended, we will actually have the luxury of 2 consultants on board so that we can keep things moving.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. Let me check with my colleagues. Do you want a presentation or want to go with staff's recommendation? That's what I thought. So we like that you were here. Thank you very much. I assume once this passes, it'll go on our consent calendar. I know that Kevin wanted to make this motion since he hasn't moved anything, and Dave would second it. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you so much. And now I got something in my eye. Okay. Moving right along. I'd like it noted that I'm doing quick. We're going to be under 7 o'clock, even with so many items on the agenda.
Maybe we should talk about our...
I'm following in Mr. Romick's great management styles. Number 7, status of the growth management plan, and this is Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, committee members. The reason I'm here tonight is to just give you an update on the status of our growth management program checklist approvals. As you know, one of the main constructs of Measure J is the growth management program. And every 2 years, we require that the 20 jurisdictions in the county prove to us their compliance with Measure J, and they do that through this checklist. There's 13 items on the checklist that they must proved to us through submitting various exhibits that they are consistent with the growth management program. This year there is over $15 million on the table for our jurisdictions. And so tonight, as of tonight, we approved, or you approved, the ninth checklist out of 20. So this checklist cycle covers calendar years 2014 and 2015. And we opened this up, the checklist submittal process for this cycle up last April. They have until the end of June of this year. So that leaves us 11 checklists and only 4 months to process them in. So that's a little concerning to us. There's 11 jurisdictions out there that haven't claimed their money, and that should be.
Have we notified them?
Well, we did some calls last year to try and figure out how many checklists would be coming in through the end of the year. We tried to contact everybody. We didn't hear back from everybody, but one of our proposals tonight is to issue a letter to all remaining jurisdictions. We would then follow up by going to the planning directors meeting in April. Speaking
You just
directly.
need to let everybody who sits around this table know, and I'm sure we'll make sure that, do the letter.
Yeah, we'll do the letter, and then we will contact them individually, just so we can know what the schedule looks like for the last 4 months.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that outreach. I would just assume that one of us sitting here may be one of those 11.
You're going to wish San Ramon wasn't one of them.
No, and that somebody might be able to make up. What the?
There are 2 at the table tonight.
Yes, okay. So we need to.
I might be able to clarify some of that. I'm looking at this money thing, that column where they actually put dollar signs, and I go down to Walnut Creek and I see 907. I go to San Ramon and I see 853. Why are we getting, with a higher population, less money? And I could swallow a little. I'm kind of being maybe poking the bear a little bit next to me. But I'm making less than Taylor? When did Brentwood sneak ahead of us? Well, how is this figured out? Is this the miles and population?
Oh, you know it. It's the old Measure J.
Well, how are we? Don't
Formula.
you count Doherty Valley? What's going on here? I've learned from Haggerty. You whine a little bit, then you whine a little more.
And along that, can I assume that the ones that aren't filled in are those 11 jurisdictions?
Those should be the 11.
Okay, well then.
I think there should be a 1 in front of it.
Well, maybe you need to talk to your person about completing the growth management plan. No.
They need more money.
Well, that isn't a reason. Reply, we want more money.
Yep.
And not that you'll get it, but, that's would be the way to do it. All righty. Interesting. Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to state that
Sure.
if for some reason a city has some extenuating circumstance where they can't complete it by the end of June, they can submit a statement of progress, which basically explains what the issue is and a schedule for completing the checklist. But, as staff, we don't want to have them get to that point, so we're going to do everything we can to make sure they can complete them on time.
And I think this should perhaps be a discussion item at the authority. Or,
No,
okay.
we'll get it in.
What?
We'll get it.
Well, just a
There's no
reminder.
sympathy at the authority.
I have a comment.
Yes, Janet.
I saw the chart and got kind of, a little irritated. So I called up our staff.
Thank you.
And her comment was, why? And I said, I'm kind of concerned about it. And she said, why? She said, we always get it in on time, and we are going to be getting it in on time this time. Why is, and this is, way out. So
That's an interesting staff response to an elected official.
Well, it's due in June, and this is just the 1st of March. So she told me the schedule of when she was doing what, and she said, and we've done it this way every year. So my thought on that one, and I don't know what any other city's plan is, but I think it's great that this list comes out. I actually really do. But I don't think that we need to get necessarily all that concerned about it unless I said to her, is there some reason you can't get it done earlier? And I think actually she might move it up a month because I complained to her, but for next year, but she can't do it at this point this year because it's it's already started the process. But so she thinks everything is just fine is really what I'm telling you. And regardless, and I think it actually is because the deadline is to have it in by June, right?
Well,
so if it comes in April, for example, it's fine. There's not a problem or anything. So we don't need to I don't think we need to overreact.
We can put this on a consent calendar. What would be nice is if you have looked at what happened last go around, if there were any cities that are currently on the list that missed it last time. But I get where you're going.
But so I think, I like this list, and I hope we keep this list if it's not too much work for our staff here. But I don't think we need to elevate it too much.
Because the county has theirs in, and I don't have to worry about it. Mr. Hudson.
Yeah, I think we should bring this back in the next couple of months. We'll see who's last. We'll see
who's.
Then because you may have been nice to that lady this time. But if it's not there in April when we have this meeting, Janet.
Well, no, it needs to be here June. Was her point.
We meet the first Wednesday in June.
You're going to let her
If you would, what I'm hearing is, could you bring us back the report at that time of where we are?
She told me when it was going to each step that it still has to go to before it gets here, and it was all on schedule to her.
Luella?
Well, I just want to respond as a CPA who's waiting for tax returns to come in, and I could tell you over about a 3 to 4 year period who was going on first extension, who was going on second extension. I bet every city is pretty much following their calendar, and if they have all decided to be deadline driven, then they're not going to move even if we send letters. I don't think it hurts to send letters, and it is kind of like it would be nice if it was a place where people took pride in getting them in early so that we could get on with the business. But if they're a late filer, they're a late filer.
All right. So are we just accepting the report? Yes, we're just accepting the report. So thank you very much. Mr. Romick, I'm sorry.
Maybe we could just put it on consent for the next couple of months, and we don't, that way we could look at the report and see.
Good idea.
If we want to talk about it, we'll pull it off consent, but it's out there and we can monitor and see who's on time and who's late, and make fun of those who are late.
Because I'd like to, 3 of the 5 sitting here, as Mr. Kelly noted, already have their hand. All right. 8, is there any other business?
Yeah, but they got more money than they should.
Oh, number 9, news clippings and correspondence. I don't think we have any of those. So we're adjourning to our meeting on Wednesday, April 5th at 6 p.m. Thank you all very much.
Well done.
So unconscious.